Hello, and welcome to Unresolved Occurrences. Tonight, we take a look up at the stars. What mysteries could the great expanse of cosmos hold for mankind? Could we find something unlike ourselves? Perhaps a helping hand to show us the way, or something far more sinister. First, visitors from outer space. One man gives his daring account of being abducted to an alien mothership, only to escape alive. Next, in Richmond, North Carolina, the oldest man in the world transforms into a giant, 8-foot-tall beetle. Only we have his exclusive story. And finally, goblins in American homes, selling pornography to your children. We'll show you how to fill in those goblin holes. All this and more, tonight on Unresolved Occurrences. Our story begins with Marvin Eddlepuddy, a seemingly normal 30-year-old man who tells us that he was spending time in his room playing a popular computer game when suddenly bright lights began to flash. Then he was transported across the stars.
This is the full story of what happened to me. The journey began in July of 1993. I had just finished running an instance on the Ice Crown Citadel in WOW, and I switched over to run a configuration on my macros so that I may defeat and slay the evil Zerg forces in StarCraft 2. Some people say Zerg, but I say Zerg. Anyway, suddenly there was a kaleidoscope of blinding light that pierced from behind me, and I realized with excitement that this was it. But I told myself, Marvin, no, don't get too excited. And then they took me.
Marvin soon awoke and found that he was captured aboard an alien vessel. With no one around to help, he waited patiently for the space invaders themselves to arrive.
Suddenly, I found myself careening through the Earth's atmosphere at least 120 miles an hour, and then I felt the moon go past me, and then our brother Mars, and then I opened my eyes to find myself completely restrained on a metal slab. It was quite cold, and there were lights blinking on the walls around me. The surfaces were shimmering like silver, and then, all of a sudden, the elders of Neptune were there themselves. And then the true horrors began.
Little did Marvin know that these spacemen intended to mold him into a terrible scientific abomination.
And so there I was, as they picked and prodded and poked me on my naked nipples, and then they spread this wonderful goo all over me. Put it on my face and my shoulders and my fingers, which I couldn't see. And then there was this snake thing they put in my face as if to tease me with it. I was hungry. And then they stuck it down below my belly, and strange noises occurred. And then they started asking me questions about missing links in my genetic makeup. And I said, no, I do not just hand that information out to anyone. And so they asked me, would I prefer peanut butter and jelly or ham? And I said, well, I like ham. But that's besides the point. 2 weeks passed, and then they stopped their experimenting, and they disappeared. For 326 days, they were gone, and there I was, alone.
In perhaps the strangest twist in the story, Marvin found himself to be pregnant. Waiting cold and alone for months, he grew to love his Martian child, just as the child grew within him.
And so, after months of seclusion, I realized the importance of all the experiences these silly moon people had done on me. And the Martha Stewart picture they showed me made perfect sense now. It represented motherhood. For you see, I was finally the alien queen den mother I'd always wanted to be, and the bastard child inside my belly. And I were one, like Link at the Triforce, forever meant and destined to be with each other. We spoke with each other We could hear each other's thoughts. And then they came for the child. And they put me in this bizarre tub-like fixture, and I was covered in the goo again. And then that spark of life, which is so precious, left my body. They took him away from me.
After harvesting the child forcibly from Marvin's body, the aliens took him away, perhaps to become some sort of celebrated king or new prophet. Now, abandoned and alone again, Marvin knew that he had to get his boy back.
And so, there I was, back in my lovely cell again, waiting, thinking, naked and alone, and they approached a third time through that wispy door, and they started telling me things, horrible things, about how they wanted to take me back to Earth without my boy. And so I said to myself, no, our genetic prowess will soon be that which is the greatest that ever lived on planet Earth, so we must go back together. So I distracted those aliens. I told them that I wanted to hear the music that played when I first arrived. And they pressed the button, and I slipped past them, and I ran through that labyrinth which is the mothership, and I made my way to the control room. And there, conveniently enough, was my baby, precious baby boy. And then I saw this strange, squishy, glowing object, and I grabbed it. It was the core of the mothership, and it whisked us quickly back to Earth. And there we were, for the first time, together, alone, at last.
Is it really true? Did Marvin escape the clutches of nefarious space invaders? Could one man really traverse the stars of outer space and survive? Or is it just the elaborate fabrication of a 30-year-old man-boy with too much time on his hands? Whether it be fact or fiction, it still remains an unresolved occurrence. Update. A few months after our program aired, Mr. Eddlepuddy contacted us and was willing to share more information about how he secretly raised his Martian son. Here is what he had to say.
And so there I was with my 18-year-old son, who I'd raised for 5 years, and we found ourselves happy and joyous with each other's presence. We ate together, we played Mario Brothers together, we played StarCraft together, we played Dig Dug together. We love video games. Anyway, he was miserable. People can be cruel. They ridicule and they call him names like Big Giant Sackface and Melon-Headed Monstrosity, all these sorts of names. And one evening, I sat Shaft 2 on my lap, and I said to him, "Son, what do you want?" And he said, "Daddy, I want to go home." And I said, "Very well." And I grabbed the ship's core from my secret hiding place, and I handed it to him with loving eyes, and he disappeared. He visits on Christmas.
If you have any paranormal information, or you wish to share your story, please contact us. Thank you.